Ralph Ellison begins his famous book at the end, Underground. A man has hidden himself away from society in a room wired for 1,369 lights. He's siphoning off electricity from a company called Monopolated Light and Power. It's an act of sabotage. This is our narrator, an invisible man. By his own telling, no one can see him, but it's not because of anything physical or biochemical. And no, he's not a ghost. He says he's invisible as a matter of the construction of others' inner eyes. Those eyes with which they look through their physical eyes upon reality. Everything that brought him to this point, this underground room, has already happened. How did he get here? How did we get here? In this episode, we'll learn why this man's basement may be the most important room in American fiction. Last week, I gave a tour of 250 years of the American novel, and this book was on that list. 90 seconds was really not enough time for this one, so I'm going to work off a debt here for one of the greatest American works of fiction. I'm talking about, of course, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, published in 1952. While politics is central to this discussion and any discussion of this novel, we're going to focus on the element that enables those politics and makes the book an important ancestor of so many novels of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Its form. Invisible Man uses a narrative form called the bildungsroman. It's a German term from the late 18th century for a story about a person's growth into maturity. I'll give you a few famous examples. Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, 1861. J.D. Salinger, The Catcher in the Rye, 1951. Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, 1960. Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street, 1984. All of these illustrate physical growth or the passage of time that parallels their characters' moral, social, or psychological progress. That last statement is key to the modern Bildungsroman. While its history has been a record of idealism, in recent centuries it's also been used as a device to show disillusionment. And if you like vocab, this novel may actually be a subgenre called Künstlerroman. But I don't want to confuse the point too much. Just a heads up, whether the Bildungsroman truly describes Invisible Man and how it enables those politics I mentioned earlier is the real question of this episode. Which brings up an important warning. This analysis will have spoilers. The early simulation of the Bildungsroman sets up expectations for a story about growth. The prologue begins underground. Its tongue-in-cheek physical positioning, it suggests that the only way for the character to go is up. But the narrator tells readers the basement is where he ended up. So, the book's beginning is the story's end. Make sense of that. The unnamed narrator's actual story arc flips the Bildungsroman, and it hints at its collapse later in the book. But for the novel's first half, Ellison promises a linear trajectory. His character begins at a classic stage as a young man, like a young Pip. A cursory examination of the book's chapters also supports expectations of the standard young American growth. It's an archetype. He has a college phase, a work section, an ideological part, and then finally a final heroic arc. It just looks like this guy's going to keep on progressing throughout the novel while learning important life lessons along the way. Invisible Man's most infamous scene is the violent and humiliating battle royal. Just starting out, the young man is at the end of his high school career. He's anticipating his next steps in life when he and a few other young black classmates are recruited for a mysterious bout. He's lured into it with the promise of delivering his famous speech to a few important people. But as he and others are led into a large, dark ballroom, smelling of heavy tobacco and alcohol, the scene turns ominous. The boys are so struck with fear that a few begin actually crying hysterically. They're guided into a central area and ringed by laughing and jeering white men, all obviously intoxicated and out of control. The boys are blindfolded with broad bands of white cloth. This is first of many deliberately symbolic plays on the sight and seeing of the novel. Then the boys are set against one another in a boxing match. I had no dignity, says the narrator, as the white men bray with bloodlust at the young black boys. The bout ends with another one of the boys winning, but they're all pain swollen and bloodied, and an attendant rolls out the portable boxing ring and brings in a square rug. Coins are scattered on it, which suggests that the boys will be fighting and scrambling for the pay they were promised by the white men. And that is exactly what happens. At the order to begin, the boys lunge at the carpet and grab for the coins. But here's the next surprise. It's electrified for the amusement of the belligerent audience. The boys begin bouncing around the mat while being jolted with painful volts. The scene is chaotic, and Ellison plays up its humiliation and violence. At the end, the rest of the boys are escorted out of the ballroom, but the narrator is asked to stick around and give his proud speech to the audience. But audience members mock him as he delivers it, yelling for him to repeat the words socially responsible as they purposefully stutter. As the narrator finalizes his words in the speech, one of the dignitaries emerges from the crowd and hands him a briefcase, which he is instructed to open. In it is a scholarship to a local black college. The young man is absolutely beaming with pride. The situation reminds the young man actually of a speech his grandfather gave him much, much earlier. And his grandfather says, "Son, I'm going to want you to keep up the good fight. I never told you, but our life is war, and I have been a traitor all my born days. Live with your head in the lion's mouth. I want you to overcome them with yeses, undermine them with grins, agree them to death and destruction. Let them swallow you till they vomit or bust wide open." Thus, the young man begins his growth. He's off to college and he learns his first lesson. The only cost is to give these powerful men his dignity, identity, sight, body, and mind. That's all. Every institution thereafter adds a piece of paper to his briefcase. These are claims they put on him. But isn't it a small price to be allowed permission and success? The Battle Royal is an allegory for Black life under Jim Crow, its degradation and high cost for low expectations. This scene's ritual humiliation reverses the bildungsroman, and as a rehearsal for the rest of Ellison's story, a picture of the whole novel in miniature. The narrator's college life stages the next phase. And of course, in the American tradition, college is a transitional moment where an individual is between youth and adulthood. A bit of both, but really neither one fully. Most of all, the college narrative is about the narrator's metaphorical movement or progress. It's transitional because he's reaching for and working toward educated respectability. The college is a promise, but not yet realized. The main character is tasked with driving a wealthy white donor before his college appearance. But when Mr. Norton asks him to just drive around, the two men end up at a poor black farmer's house where they learn about the man's incest. The scene subverts the heroic uplift fantasy the donor has imagined about himself, and it imperils the college financial backing. The college president, Dr. Bledsoe, is infuriated and removes the narrator from the college as punishment. The scene does a couple of things. Dr. Bledsoe reaffirms the grandfather's claims from the last section about yesing them to death. And in a surprise epiphany, the president pulls the institutional illusion away from success and learning. Rather than a path to dignity, he actually offers a diagram of power. The fundraising apparatus that has kept the college together is a performance for white dollars. And says Bledsoe, the white folk tell everybody what to think, except for men like me. I tell them. That's my life. Telling white folk how to think about the things I know about. Shocks you, doesn't it? Well, that's the way it is. It's a nasty deal, and I don't always like it myself. Aside from a later character, Reinhardt, Dr. Bledsoe might just be the novel's most unnerving figure. He's deliberate, direct, and he lifts the veil on race and power. His show of influence reveals both the racial boundaries of power and the limited share of it allotted to Southern blacks. The cost, the older man says, is high. And because the narrator has failed so miserably at manipulating his white benefactor, Bledsoe's model for education and success is wholly unattainable. That, and of course, the Invisible Man's social illiteracy means he's out. Bledsoe's final move is to expel the narrator and give him 7 sealed recommendation letters to business leaders in New York. With this deal, Bledsoe says, he can earn the tuition to come back to college. Off goes the young man to the city to another promise of growth. Employment. While the college offers social mobility, Ellison's reading of the institution maps its limitations, and also the main characters. Bledsoe's offer of employment in the city anticipates another vertical path to growth. In his possible naivety, the Invisible Man accepts. After finding out what Bledsoe wrote in the letters, the protagonist is forced to abandon the college sphere of influence. He then has to take a job at a place called Liberty Paints, and he embarks on another narrative cycle. The company's big claim to fame is its optic white color, which is created by adding 10 drops of black to regular white. This reveal and his later introduction to a new foreman uncovers black people's hidden labor behind the illusion of whiteness. It's clever. Optic White's primary customer is the American government, who uses its paint in its monuments. So the country is literally covering itself in the image of whiteness, which gains its popular hue from its invisible blackness. After the main character is reassigned to the bowels of the factory plant, he meets his new foreman, a black man named Lucius Brockway. While the factory is dominated by a white management hierarchy, it's Brockway who controls Liberty Paint Systems, and he tells the narrator he actually coined the optic whites tag. If it's optic white, it's the right white. Remember, 10 drops of black. The revelation is a parable of black people's participation in America's economic system. Moreover, it speaks to the underlying black invisibility needed to support a sense of national and white identity. The particular bildungsroman collapse ends with a bang. No, seriously. The narrator and Brockway are caught in an explosion that sends Invisible Man to the hospital where he experiences a surreal dream and a surreal rebirth. On the other side of his hallucinations, the book and protagonist embark on a noticeable tonal shift, one that takes him into Harlem and deep into its underground activist community. The novel's second half will test Invisible Man and the Bildungsroman narrative more so than the first half did. Comparatively, the first half is all set up, whereas the beginning was a test of the narrator's innocence. The novel's later portion tests a more political, capable, and fully engaged character. Before getting to his run with the activist organization, the Brotherhood, Ellison stages a brief moment of respite. Not fully healed from the explosion, the narrator collapses on the city sidewalk. But a kind woman, Mary Rambo, takes him into her home and generously allows him to heal. The moment stands out because it's the one time in the novel when he's given something without requiring a return. In previous experiences, they gave him a high school diploma, but social conflict in return. They gave him a briefcase in college, but he sacrificed his dignity and body. They gave him a window into power, but removed his ability to access it. And finally, they provided him a job, but it exploded. In his briefcase, he carries meek papers that symbolize these costs. Mary Rambo, on the other hand, expects nothing of him, and he gains from her generosity. It's Ellison letting readers know how visibility might work. No debt and no invisibility. I mentioned just a moment ago that Invisible Man appears more capable now. Here's how we know. He happens upon an older couple getting evicted. Angry, he speaks out and people actually listen to him. It turns out that all of those years speaking have sharpened his skills and his rhetorical sense. And he's good. So good that he almost starts a riot and he has to escape across a row of Harlem rooftops. This moment catches the eye of a local activist group called the Brotherhood. As he makes his final getaway, he's met by someone named Brother Jack. Impressed, Jack offers him a job, an apartment, a new name, an identity on a slip of paper, and best of all, a purpose. These are all the things he's ever sought, so he places the slip of paper, his identity, in the briefcase. Bildungsroman complete. But he doesn't yet realize the Brotherhood doesn't see him either. He's a function the same way he was for the white men at the Battle Royal, the rich college donors, and the factory where he was a unit of labor. Tod Clifton in the book is evidence of this. Clifton is described as a beautiful and charismatic young man. For both the narrator and the Brotherhood, he represents a bright and shining future. After a disagreement with another brother, Invisible Man is sent away from Harlem to downtown. But before long, he's back at HQ. Tod Clifton has gone missing, and the others send out a search party. One day, the narrator spots Todd Clifton on a midtown sidewalk. He's selling cheap minstrel dolls called Sambo. The main character is horrified as Clifton manipulates the dancing puppets with an invisible black thread. It's a complete reversal of the values he and the Brotherhood had previously professed. As Invisible Man watches, Clifton is roughly moved along by a cop. Clifton resists by punching back at the cop, and he's gunned down in broad daylight. At his funeral, the main character is nudged to speak in front of thousands, and he delivers a speech in plain repetitions of the man's name: Todd Clifton, young, shot dead. He says, "The story's too short and too simple. His name was Clifton, Todd Clifton. He was unarmed, and his death was as senseless as his life was futile. He had struggled for the Brotherhood on 100 street corners, and he thought it would make him more human, but he died like any dog in a road." Clifton's body fits no message, but it's the loudest part of the novel. The moment is stark. No ideology, no lesson, just one bright talent dead. His death explains the Brotherhood Committee was not on the agenda, and the narrator's speech at his funeral didn't fit their message. Another collapse. The new name, the job, and the purpose, all a false trajectory. All attempts at self-formation have failed him. But Ellison has one more move for his protagonist, and he wears a hat and dark glasses. The main character's final path shows readers another aspect of invisibility that promises fluidity and zero self. Another rival activist group, led by someone named Ross the Exhorter, confronts the narrator about the Brotherhood's goals. They rage at the Brotherhood's willingness, as a white organization, to spend Black lives for their cause. Invisible Man escapes them, and he slips into a store to buy a disguise: a hat and dark glasses. No one recognizes him, but all over Harlem, people call him Reinhardt. As a new man, the narrator sees his invisibility through new lenses. The name Reinhardt belongs to a notorious man of many identities. He's a lover of many women. He's a gambler, a numbers runner, a hustler, and perhaps more horrific, a Reverend B.P. Reinhardt, spiritual technologist. His final scam is a storefront for spiritual crafts where the tagline claims he can make the invisible visible. Reinhardt is another version of the grandfather speech from earlier. While Bledsoe defined the mask for yesing, Reinhardt has used invisibility to transform multiple masks into a business enterprise. The protagonist sees the appeal, but recognizes that both Bledsoe and Reinhardt represent another collapse. At the novel's climax, Harlem burns as a riot ensues. It's the result of long festering resentments and escalating pressures. The narrator realizes that the Brotherhood and others were all too willing to harvest outrage and sacrifice Harlem for their causes. Invisible Man races into Harlem, where he's swept up in chaos. Looters fires cops and Roz the Exhorter on horseback with a spear. He runs from the danger and falls eventually into a coal pit where he's sealed in by his pursuers. In the dark, he recognizes his only chance for light: the briefcase. Piece by piece, he burns his prize artifacts from the previous chapters: the high school diploma, a Sambo doll he carried from Clifton's death, a warning letter he finally recognizes as Brother Jack's handwriting: "Don't rise too far. Finally, the slip of paper with his Brotherhood identity and name on it. The claims they put on him, they burn one by one. These were always false promises of ascension, a bildungsroman whose cycles led to collapse. Every institution is represented, and their fragile credibility burns to show Invisible Man where his journey concluded. Underground, and, ironically, exactly where the novel began. So, let's make sense of this all now. What did the novel promise and what did it give us? The novel's form promises readers character growth and progress. In fact, the building roman's narrative is meant to go up, but Ellison bends it in circles. Through 5 phases, the narrator sought uplift through recognition, scholarship, profession, ideology, and reinvention. But again and again, the cost was invisibility. Others never really saw him as he was. Rather, he became a function of their desire. Bledsoe and the wealthy donors tried to make him a symbol of their own heroism. The factory attempted to subsume his labor, and the Brotherhood tried to make him a tool and sacrifice for their own cause. Each attempt at progress led to collapse because they were all written by someone else, and he was the mere performer. But in the epilogue, the narrator makes another promise in the clear light of 1,369 bulbs. He's learned to put it all down in writing and shake off the old skin and come up for breath. There's a possibility that even an invisible man has a socially responsible role to play. That is, the writing, the book we've read, are on that path. Through his ability to write and put it all down for his readers, his expression becomes the role. So, rather than a Bildungsroman, the book is actually a Künstlerroman, which is an expression of an artist's coming of age. And this suggests that his writing and the book are his best trajectory. They are his path. While the book's progress suggests a possible breakout from the cycle, it ends without a definitive resolution. It leaves open the result of this new venture and whether or not he will ever escape invisibility from others' eyes. Thank you for watching. This has been Tilting at Tomes. I'm Ben.